was refreshed. Minor tweaks were made to modernize and digitize a symbol that has long been the shield we wear proudly. Early degree chains and FFA jackets did not have the eagle atop the emblem, but other alterations have been made as well. The words vocational agriculture were changed to agricultural education when the organization changed its name in 1988. Comparing the original emblem to the one we know today, yes, there are some differences, but one thing remains the same. The emblem is still held close to our hearts. And this is one example of how our organization believes in premier leadership, personal growth, and career success. Since 1928, these have never been altered. 16 individuals from Kentucky have had the distinct opportunity to serve as a national officer. And tonight, we will give them a moment of recognition. Although things might have changed, they served with such a great heart. The content of their speeches, the way they traveled, and even the emblem on their jackets may have been different, but they served our organization so proudly. And we are so proud that they called Kentucky home. Tonight, we will gain recognition of the national FFA and NFA officers from the state of Kentucky.
John Rees of Owensboro served as the first national FFA officer from Kentucky in 1934 to 1935. He graduated from LaSalle University in 1942. Mr. Rees was a longtime employee of Modern Welding Company, retiring as president and CEO. He was also very active in his church and community and served on numerous boards and committees. He was president of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, chairman board of Brescia College, vice president of National Association of Manufacturers, and director of Owensboro National Bank. He was also a certified public accountant. He and his wife Margaret had 10 children. Mr. Rees passed away in 2012 at the age of 96. Tonight, we are honored to have his granddaughter with us, representing her grandfather and the first ever national FFA officer from Kentucky, Mr. John Rees.
Julian Pierce grew up on a family farm in Scott County. He was an active member of the Stamping Ground FFA chapter, where Ivan Jett was his advisor. Mr. Pierce served as the National FFA first vice president from 1936 to 1937. He graduated from the University of Kentucky in 1940 with a degree in agriculture. From 1940 to 1942, he taught at Bath County High School. And then from 1942 to 1947, he taught at Great Crossings in Scott County. In 1947, he quit teaching to farm full-time. His 300-plus acre farm included limousine cattle and tobacco. Mr. Pierce was very active in his community and even earned the Scott County Pioneer Award. He and his wife, Hilma Claxton Pierce, had one daughter, Camille Singer. Miss Singer is here with us tonight representing her father. All right, let's go.
Mr. Roy H. Hunt of Brandenburg served as the Kentucky FFA State President from 1939 to 1940, and as a national officer from 1940 to 1941. He grew up on a small farm in Meade County that eventually became part of Fort Knox. His father ran a small country store and sold case implement. He would often take a load of grain or hogs to Louisville before attending school. He received a degree of agriculture from the University of Kentucky, and while he was stepping off the stage from graduating, his sister handed him his draft papers to enter into World War II. He served as a radar operator for the USS New Mexico and was in Tokyo Bay for the Japanese surrender. He worked for a short period of time for the University of Kentucky College of Agriculture before returning home to take over the family business. He built up Hunt Tractor Company to one of the biggest dealerships in the country prior to his retirement. He now resides in Louisville, Kentucky, where he is still active in his church. I'm so proud to recognize the oldest living national FFA officer, a lifelong agriculturalist, and a World War II veteran. Although Mr. Hunt couldn't be here with us tonight, I'm so pleased to have a Meade County FFA member here to help celebrate Mr. Roy H. Hunt.
Paul Smart grew up on a farm in Woodford County where he raised cattle, sheep, hogs, corn, and tobacco. He was a member of the Versailles FFA chapter where C. O'Neill was his advisor. One of his sows produced the Grand Champion barrel at the 1946 Kentucky State Fair. He served as the Kentucky State FFA president from 1943 to 1944. In 1946, he was selected as the American Farmer for the Central Region. From 1946 to 1947, he served as the National FFA third vice president. Later, he served in the Army during the Korean conflict. After his arrival home from the Army, he served and worked in the Woodford Bank. He also was active for the Cleveland home in Versailles, was the director of the Woodford County Farm Bureau, and worked as a farm broadcaster for WVLK Radio after his retirement in 1983 from farming. On behalf of her father and her mother, Ray, is Miss Smart, Janelle, his daughter.
Every FFA member knows the significance of 1965 in our history, the year when two organizations merged into one, thus ending segregated membership within the FFA. What you may not know is that over the years, the historical items that tell us about Kentucky's NFA chapters have been nearly impossible to locate. For years, countless teachers and staff have searched for pictures, documents, and any other items to tell the story of our Commonwealth's New Farmers of America chapters. With the passing of time, the people who experienced the NFA and its records have become harder to locate. John Johnson of Hopkinsville served as the National NFA president from 1952 to 1953. Robert Berry Jr. of Mays Lick served as an NFA officer from 1954 to 1955. Sadly, that is all we know about these two men. While there's no pictures to show or biographies to share, one thing is true. One does not become a national leader by accident. While the specifics of Mr. Johnson and Mr. Berry's legacy may not be known to us, we are undoubtedly better for their service. We are thankful for their belief in agriculture's future, and tonight we celebrate their commitment to the NFA. Here to represent Mr. Johnson tonight is Kayla Burrows of the Hopkinsville FFA chapter, and here to represent Mr. Berry is Garrett Stanfield of the Mason County FFA chapter. Harley Blaine Jr. from Christian County was born in Christian County. He attended Hopkinsville Attucks High School, where his teacher of agriculture was Claude Snorton Jr. He was a national NFA officer from 1960 to 1962. He focused his studies and became a veterinarian. Sadly, Mr. Berry passed away. Also here to represent Mr. Berry tonight is Kayla Burrows, Hopkinsville FFA member.
Rupert Grant Seals was a member of the New Farmers of America. He served as National Secretary from 1946 to 1947 and National President from 1948 to 1949. He attended Frederick Douglass High School in Lexington, Kentucky, where his teacher of agriculture was Augustus Mack. Because he was an NFA officer, he had many opportunities to travel the South. He received his bachelor's from the Florida A&M University, his master's from the University of Kentucky, and completed his PhD at Washington State University. Now, he taught at all of these universities, as well as the Tennessee State University, Iowa State University, and the University of Nevada. Dr. Seals has received numerous awards, including being inducted into the George Washington Carver Public Service Hall of Fame at Tuskegee University and being named a distinguished graduate of Washington State University. He currently lives in Reno, Nevada with his wife, where he serves as a columnist for the Reno Gazette-Journal. To our knowledge, there is only one NFA jacket that is still in existence that was worn by a member from Kentucky, and that member is Dr. Rupert Seals. We are honored to have this jacket here with us tonight, as well as Kentucky's only living NFA officer, Dr. Rupert Seals.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am 82 years old. I grew up in the bluegrass, Fayette County, in a little village called Cadentown. I have worked in about 8 states, including my graduate work, and I now live in Reno, Nevada with my wife, as she said. I worked at the University of Nevada and retired from there, as well as taking a retirement from Florida A&M. But let me tell you what my NFA experiences really did for me. I traveled before I graduated from high school to 6 universities and colleges, all black. That set the stage for my career. And I won't go through everything, but then it became easier to travel from Lexington, Kentucky to Tallahassee, Florida to go to college. It became easier, of course, to come back and go to the University of Kentucky. And the University of Kentucky, while had been closed up until a couple of years before I attended to blacks, I found myself in a good place. And then, of course, I went another 2,500 miles to Washington State to work on a doctorate, which I received in 1959. Since then, I've traveled overseas. I've stood overnight in London, Paris, Rome, and Frankfurt on my way to Africa. I instituted at least 2 or 3 projects overseas by way of the Aid for International Development. 1 in Kenya, which lasted for 6 years, 2 in Cameroon, which lasted for a similar time. I believe 1 lasted longer. 2 in Colombia, South America. Also traveled to the Caribbean several times. We had a project in Haiti before the earthquake. I say all of that because it was my NFA experience which said to me that all people are primarily the same. I am honored to be here, particularly associated with Mr. Colliff, and by way of a connection with the University of Kentucky. I want to thank my 2 brothers for being here, and Mrs. Georgetta Seals, my wife. We have been married for 60 years this past December, and we'll... And as I told the people when we celebrated our 50th, I said, I'll see you in another 50 years. Thank you.
Jerry Ringo grew up on a small farm in Menifee County where he was an active breeder of Poland China hogs. After serving as state president in 54-55, he was elected to national office in 1956. While attending the University of Kentucky, he was a publisher for the newspaper, the Kentucky Mountain Journal. He was very active in the Democratic Party, serving as the youth chairman for Governor A.B. Happy Chandler. As a teenager, Mr. Ringo caught rheumatic fever and sustained permanent damage to his heart. He died at the young age of 26. Members of his era remember him fondly and said that if Jerry had lived, he would have been governor. To join us tonight on Mr. Ringo's behalf are his cousins, Miss Charlotte Nesker and Nasty Ratliff. Thank you for all coming and joining us tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Jerry Ringo's family. Grew up on his small family farm in Jessamine County, where he graduated from Jessamine County High School. His teacher of agriculture, Mr. Harlanville, is who he credits for much of his success. After serving as state president in 56-57, he was elected as the first national president from Kentucky in 1957. He attended the University of Kentucky, where he earned a law degree, and continues to practice law in Jessamine County today, where he spent much of his time serving as the attorney for the Jessamine County Board of Education. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to our convention, Mr. Howard Downing.
Kenneth Kennedy served as a national FFA officer from 1964 to 1965. He grew up on a small family farm in Trigg County, raising tobacco, cattle, and row crops. He attended the University of Kentucky, where he obtained his law degree. Mr. Kennedy practiced law for many years and was even the Katy City attorney. However, many FFA members see him in one of the most iconic photographs in our history. You see, Kenneth Kennedy, he presided over the 1965 FFA National Convention, where the new Farmers of America merged with the future Farmers of America. Representing Kenneth Kennedy tonight is Trigg County FFA member Deanna Ladd.
Steve Meredith grew up on a family farm in Hardin County, Kentucky. He was a member of the West Hardin FFA chapter, where his advisors were Hezzy Williams and Joe Ed Johnson. He served as the Kentucky FFA State President in 1983 through 84. He was then elected as the National FFA President in November of 1984. Following his time in national office, he went on to the University of Kentucky to receive a degree in ag economics. Today he works for the Governor's Office of Agricultural Policy, farms, and runs a greenhouse business with his son in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. His son Alex was named American Star in Agribusiness in 2011, the first Kentucky FFA member to receive this award. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Mr. Steve Meredith.
Brad Chambliss grew up raising Hereford cattle on a farm in Breckinridge County. His father, Dr. Bob Chambliss, was the state officer in 1956 to 57. Brad grew up in the Breckinridge County FFA, where his advisors were Leon Smiley, Pat Henderson, Tom Macy, and Robin Gibson. He was state FFA president in 1986 to 87, and then national FFA officer in 1988 to 89. He attended the University of Kentucky, where he earned a degree in animal science. After graduation, he continued to raise Hereford cattle full-time for several years. He then worked as a mortgage broker for 14 years and continues as a mortgage banker in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. He continues to farm for part-time and is an active member at the Severance Valley Baptist Church, where he and his wife Carla have raised 4 boys, Clay, Clint, Caleb, and Cooper. Ladies and gentlemen, Brad Chambliss.
"2006 was a year of change for the FFA. It was the first year that the National FFA Convention was held in Indianapolis, Indiana. Leaving its Louisville home for 7 years, FFA headed up North Interstate 65. While the convention may have left, Kentucky would be bringing back something to our Commonwealth. Ending Kentucky FFA's 18-year drought of national officers was Mr. Cody Back from Menifee County. His passion for the FFA and belief in servant leadership allowed him to spend a year representing the greatest youth organization there is. Please join us in welcoming the 2006-2007 National FFA Eastern Region Vice President, Mr. Cody Back. The term self-fulfilling prophecy means believing in all of the possibilities and refusing to walk away from what your heart tells you. In 2011, Jonelle Futrell left the National FFA Convention unsuccessful in her bid to become a national officer. But upon returning home, she began preparing to run again. Traveling, studying, and using her experience from 2011, Jonelle was not going to let this opportunity slip away. 2012 was the final year for Indianapolis to host the National Convention before it returned to Louisville, Kentucky. And when it did return to the Bluegrass State, a Kentuckian would be representing. At the final session of the 2012 National FFA Convention, Jonelle Futrell became the first female officer from Kentucky. Jonelle is in Washington, D.C. tonight, working with the Washington Leadership Conference, but representing her is the current president of the Davis County FFA chapter, Ms. Hunter Ann Julian.
The last session of National Convention has an electricity to it like none other. The anticipation of a new officer team being announced brings excitement and anxiety. When the nominating committee chairman came to the podium, our team sat on pins and needles. When you have a personal connection to someone, you know you are biased. You know that this level, the competition is fierce. But at the same time, you know that your friend is worthy of the opportunity. It's hard to say what happened when Ruth Ann was announced as a national officer, because between the joy, the hugs, the screams, and the tears, it was hard to pay attention. Maybe this video will help.
And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. We, the nominating committee, have given careful and deliberate consideration to all applicants running for national office. The committee nominates the following slate of candidates to the delegates of the 87th National FFA Convention to serve as national officers for the year 2014-2015. Those candidates are your Eastern Region Vice President, from the state of Kentucky, Ruth Ann Myers.
It is no secret that this year the FFA has an amazing person who's done amazing work. FFA members and guests, can we hear another round of applause for your 2014-2015 National FFA Eastern Region Vice President, Miss Ruth Ann Myers.
From 1934 to 2015, we have been blessed to have a few members leave their old Kentucky home to serve the members of our organization. While some are no longer with us, we continue to carry with us the results of their service. The opportunities of this organization, the growth of our association, the work of our chapters comes from generations of leaders that have come before us. May we always remember that through our past, we see our future. The rising sun that John Rees saw as a boy in the 1930s is the same sun that shines on us today. Ladies and gentlemen, let us show our gratitude to those who have reached beyond their local borders to lead the greatest youth organization in history.